This video is to help you with the hypothesis test Excel file. So once you download that, there's a few things to notice. First, down at the bottom, you can change the sheet based on the situation that you're in. And some of these sheets have two sides. One of the sides says statistics. So if you're given statistics, use that side. If you're given the data, use the right side. And you can see the mean, the difference of means, unpaired and paired, have those two there. Now, in order to choose which sheet that you're using, you'll have to make a decision. And to help with this decision, I made a little graphic here, which lives in the practice test 3 folder. Now, if it says confidence interval, you'll use the confidence interval file. If it says hypothesis test, I'm going to use the hypothesis test file. So you start at the top and you branch to the appropriate sheet. So the first decision, is it about a mean or is it about a proportion? Typically, if you're just looking for those words. If it says average, branch over here. If it says proportion, I'll go to this one. Then you branch if there's one proportion or if there's two proportions over here. If there's one mean or if there's two means. And then you branch one more time here if it's a paired difference or dependent sampling versus independent sampling or unpaired difference of means. And the sheets names are down here. That's one of the most difficult parts of this third part of this course. Practice helps a lot with being able to make the correct decision on what sheet to use. So let's look at a couple examples. This is 10.3.18t, and this one says that the mean temperature of humans is 98.6. There are researchers and they think now it's less than 98.6. They measure 50 healthy adults and eventually get 225 measurements. The sample data is described here. So it's a little lower, right? 98.4 versus 98.6. Standard deviation is 1 degree. And we want to use a hypothesis test to see if these researchers are onto something. So these hypotheses, you want to do the reading to make sure you know how to set up the hypothesis test. Is an important part. But I want to show you specifically how to use this Excel file. So here we have just one sample and we're looking at an average. So we're using this first sheet here. Now we have to fill in this side here. They're not giving us any data points. They're not listing out the 225 measurements. So we have to put in the information given the statistics over here. So the sample mean, they say, was 98.4. The population mean, what it normally is, 98.6. The standard deviation was just 1 degree. Sample size in this case is 225. And we're using a 0.01 or 1% level of significance. The last thing is the direction. They think it's less than, so we'll use a left-tailed test. Okay, now it's giving us some information here. The t-score is the test statistic here. They have named both ways there. So -3 exactly, actually. And the p-value is right here. Gives us 0.0015. We would take it up to 0.002 or 0.2%. Also lists out the null and the alternate hypothesis for you. And then the real simple conclusion, or I guess the first conclusion, is that we would reject the null hypothesis because of the comparison of the p-value with the level of significance. Then you have to do conclusions, and there's typically other parts that you want to do as well. In this case, we would say it's showing significant evidence that the previously thought temperature, the 98.6, may not be quite accurate. So let's look at another example. This is in chapter 11. It's 11.1.25. And it's describing a clinical trial. So it says 3,304 allergy sufferers were randomly assigned to either a medical or medicine group or a placebo group. It was reported 48 of 1,657 individuals in the medicine group and 30 out of 1,647 in the placebo group experienced dry mouth as a side effect of their respective treatments. Okay, so this one's completely randomized, and it's asking about variables as well. Lots of different things to answer there about experimental design. I want to show you how to use the Excel file. So here is where it starts the stuff with the hypothesis test. So it's asking us a question, and we're using a level of significance of 5%, and it's saying is greater, so it's telling us the direction. We choose this equals for the null, greater than for the alternate hypothesis. And now we go to the Excel file. When you see this like something out of something else, that's telling us it's a proportion. It's giving us the number of successes out of the number of trials, in this case, the number of people who had dry mouth out of the whole number of people that went through the experiment, either with the medicine or the placebo. So we have two different proportions. So this is a difference of proportions here. And we have to fill in this information. So sample proportion 1, this would be the proportion for the medicine group. So we're taking 48 out of 1,657. So I type that there equals 48/1657. Press enter. The second one is 30 out of 1,647. So type equals 30/1647. Press enter. The sample size for the first one was 1657. Sample size for the second was 1647. We're using 5% level of significance. That's good. It's not two-tailed, it's right-tailed, so type the word right in there. And now we can read this information from here. So the test statistic here, 2.0355, so round that to 2.04. The p-value here, 0.021, rounding that as well. Gives us the null hypothesis, alternate hypothesis. These might look slightly different because of a strange notation that this book uses. Sometimes they put mu and they subscript it with the word D. It's just a different way. It's actually just taking the statistic and moving it all to one side of the equal sign. But I have it formatted a little bit differently. But you can see here it also tells you whether to reject. It does the comparison for you, even though you should be able to do that without using the Excel file anyway.